To build and maintain hope, we need three things: control, a sense of value, and a community. Hi BookTube, I'm Chris, I'm a doctor, I've read this book, I'm going to summarize it for you. So in life, in terms of your control, that means that you believe that what you can do will impact on others or yourself. Having that sense of control is important. Values, now this actually means that you believe what you're doing is valuable. It may be to yourself or others, but it's something to work towards. And community means that we are often part of a group that actually often share similar values, and you're often working together to achieve good things. So you need these three things for hope. And let me tell you what would happen if you don't have them. So without a community, you'd often feel isolated, and then your values would cease to mean anything. Without values, everything isn't really worth pursuing. And without control, we feel powerless to pursue anything. So if you lose any of the three, the other two swiftly get lost as well, and then you can ultimately lose hope. One of the central messages of this book is dividing the brain into two, only it's actually the thinking brain and the feeling brain. So the feeling brain is often how you would feel, and it's often running along there that you can't actually control. So what you have to do is try to engage the feeling brain on its own terms. So you could try and change your environment to allow the feeling brain's kind of impulses and intuition to be helping you, making you get better rather than worse. And you have to really accept with and work with rather than against what the feeling brain throws out at you and generates for you. Because ultimately you don't have control of the feeling brain. However, the thinking brain, you do have some control over it. And that's important to get that kind of difference. The thinking brain wants to control how you're feeling, but it can't. So if you keep trying, you may then think, this is really bad. I feel anxious. I'm depressed because I can't stop and change the way I feel. So part of that is actually why some people are just miserable, because they're kept in that kind of dilemma. And ultimately, it's a bit about mindfulness, accepting how you're feeling in that particular moment. You could argue that chronic anxiety is a crisis of hope. It's the fear of a failed future, whereas depression, you could say, is a crisis of hope. It's the belief in a meaningless future. So delusion, addiction, obsession, these are all the mind's desperate, compulsive attempts at generating hope when, in fact, it isn't working out too well. Now, this is interesting because the book mentions this Newton's first law of emotion. He goes up to 3. And the first law states when somebody or something causes us pain, a moral gap opens up and with our feeling brain, and it summons up emotion in us to try to equalize. So that may be if somebody has caused you pain, you may want to get pain back to them. Equally, if somebody has been generous to you and given you something, often the desire is to equalize that by giving them something back. And potentially this is why we often develop the false belief that we need to change the way we are. If we can't achieve our goals, if we can't lose weight, get the promotion or learn that skill, then we may think there's an internal deficiency. And in order to maintain hope, we must then change ourselves, because somebody told me that you need to be new, different to get better. And that desire to change ourselves then refills us with hope. The old me wants to become the new me, and then if and when that fails, you start the process of trying to change yourself again. And it's just a cycle that you don't want to be necessarily trapped into. And Newton's second law of emotion is how we come to value everything in life relative to ourselves is the sum of our emotions over time. If we're not able to equalize and act on that righteous feeling of our feeling brain, and then we'll believe that's kind of the only explanation. I'm not good, that person's good, they're righteous. And surrendering to this persistent moral gap actually is part of your feeling brain's nature. Newton's third law of emotion is that your identity will stay your identity until a new experience acts against it. And the network of value-based narratives is actually our identity that we all possess. And notice when you adopt these little narratives as part of your identity, your instinct is to protect these and react emotionally to them as though they're inherently part of you if somebody is challenging them. So try to keep an open mind. And this book also mentions quite a lot about how to start a tribe or a religion. And if you want to know more, please look at the book. It was quite bizarre, that section, but one of the central themes to do that is to get a common enemy so that then you can unite people against something and then they will come together and potentially follow you. So, what's the point? Well, the main challenge is actually to act without hope. To hope not for better, to actually be better in this moment and in the next moment. And it's of note that our emotional reactions to our problems are not determined by the size of the problem. This is key. Really, our minds expect to have a certain degree of stress and issues and can potentially amplify or minimize issues to fit accordingly. And from my point of view, it's fascinating to see as a general practitioner different people's issues and how they can magnify or minimize these, which would be certainly going along with that suggestion. Clearly, material progress and security do not necessarily make us relax or actually hope for a better future anymore. Let me tell you about the blue dot effect. This is an experiment in which volunteers looked at thousands of dots, and initially they were shown 1,000 dots and lots of them were blue. Then they had to repeat this. I don't know if they got paid or not, but they volunteered. Only this time there were less blue dots, and because they'd been conditioned to see that many blue dots, they were all soon mistaking purple dots for blue dots. So you think, well, what's the point? Well, this really is an example of humans warping their perceptions to the reality that actually fits their expectations. So if you expect something and you perceive something's going to happen, you almost always will see that way. And this is actually how our blue dot effect in our mind is conditioned, because you look out for threats and issues, perhaps regardless of how safe or comfortable that you actually are. Remember, the better things get, the more we perceive threats where there are none, and the more upset we become. And that's actually at the heart of this paradox of progress. We should not try and actually avoid pain, because pain is constant in our lives, and expect some pain, because that's potentially the currency of our values. Without pain, the loss or potential loss, it's actually quite difficult to determine what anything is worth in terms of its value, because pain is at the heart of all emotion. And negative emotions are often caused by experiencing pain, whereas positive emotions are often caused by alleviating pain. And when we avoid pain and make ourselves more fragile by doing this, then often our emotional reactions become wildly disproportionate to the importance of that particular event. So the concept you'd be aiming for is this of anti-fragile, which is with an adverse effect or an impact, you actually grow in strength, you grow through adversity. I've summarized a book about anti-fragility. I'll put the link down below. I think it's a written summary. It's a really long book and really boring, but the written summary is good. So let's get back to this current one. The Buddha said that suffering is like being shot by 2 arrows. And I think this is a great concept, because in most cases, it's actually the second arrow that causes the pain. Let me tell you more. The first arrow is actually the physical incidence. This is when you're getting struck by the arrow, it's piercing your skin. Obviously, I hope you're not getting struck by an arrow now. If you are, that's a good excuse to put this YouTube video down and retreat or shoot an arrow back if you want to follow the theme of the first law of Newton's emotions. If not, keep watching, please. But when that penetrates you, it's that physical damage that actually is there. And what actually, it doesn't last that long, because then the second arrow, which is the thing that lasts longer, is the kind of mental, emotional pain, replaying what happened, in which those narratives that spin through our minds, whether or not we deserved the action, and that's the thing that lasts longer. And given pain is the almost universal constant in life, the opportunities to actually grow from pain are constant. All that is required is that we don't numb ourselves to the pain and potentially deny ourselves from that ability to learn from it and feel the purpose in life. A little bit about marketing. Now, as we all know, we're not rational, and we often buy things through emotion rather than actually thinking. And interestingly, there was a chap called Edward Bernays in 1928 who was this hotshot marketer that actually the American Tobacco Company hired. And another fact about him is that he was Sigmund Freud's nephew, but he capitalized on this fact that people buy with the feeling brain rather than the rational brain. So he actually started fake news, he used celebrities, and he in fact also managed to sadly introduce smoking widely to women. And how he did this was that he challenged the norms of the time, and he utilized the movement. So he said, women are actually, lighting their liberty sticks to be equal with men. Sadly, women's deaths from smoking-related diseases did increase as well. But I think it's just important to realize that, touching on marketing, that the feeling brain is what you're wanting to do. The book also mentions a bit about advanced artificial intelligence. Now, it's very Terminator-like in terms of Skynet, but it's suggesting that when AI can actually spawn better versions of itself at will, then we'll no longer have control over what's going on. If this is a new concept, please go and watch Terminator. I think Terminator 1, 2, those are the best ones to stick with. However, because the human thinking brains are already much slower to react than computers, you can see how chess champions have been beaten, and also there's very impressive examples with a computer learning chess in one day and then actually beating world champions. But ultimately, because the thinking brains aren't fast enough to catch up with the computers, and our feeling brains are actually potentially erratic and dangerous, then it suggests that AI, advanced AI, could actually harvest human hope as a resource. It sounds far-fetched, and let's hope this doesn't happen. But in essence, this is saying that you're going to be handing over your hope, and kind of the old gods will be now replaced by the AI gods, in which you're hoping the algorithm will help you. So just like this video, I have control over what I put out, but it's now in the hands of the algorithm. In terms of value, I believe that it has some value, so I hope it's helping you. And community, feel free to comment below and things, because it's an isolating task at times making YouTube videos, but I really appreciate all the encouragement from people in real life and obviously online as well. Let's get back to this book. The only true and ethical form of freedom is through self-limitation. Now, this is what the book suggests. Feel free to disregard this bit. It's not the privilege of choosing everything that you want in life, but it's rather actually choosing what you want to give up. Because diversions come and go, pleasure never lasts, and variety soon loses its meaning. But the constant thing that you have control over is that you can choose what you're willing to sacrifice and give up. And that's the sort of self-denial that's paradoxically what can potentially enhance your freedom. And I think it also fits with having to give up things to focus on what's important for you. So rather than hoping for better, just be better. Be more compassionate, resilient, humble, disciplined, and I hope that video's helped you get the most out of your life. I'll see you next time.